What's up, guys? David DeSell here, your host of the Business with the Boys podcast, and as always, joined with my co-host today, Landon Troyer. And Landon, I know we've been talking about LandJet for a bit because they're sponsors of our show, and we'll talk about them here shortly. But you got off the land and went in an actual jet just this week when we were recording this intro. What was that trip all about?
Yeah, so got to do a little boys trip out to Western Nebraska to Prairie Club and took some clients and friends out and got to do a little entertaining, which was awesome. Got to load up on the big boy PJ actually this time. And there is no other way to travel, I'll tell you that. So yeah, client of ours has a pretty nice little setup and has four pilots on staff already. So he's like, hey, why would we make the 4+ hour drive when we can make a 40-minute flight and go? So
Hell
I
yeah.
wasn't gonna turn it down.
I love it. I love it. Well, also quick thank you to the folks over at LandJet. They actually sent us a flyer recently for all of our listeners that you'd be hard pressed to not take them up on if you're in the Omaha, Nebraska or Des Moines, Iowa area, and reach out to Rachel at landjet.com. That's our email address. But the rate that they're offering our listeners. And again, LandJet is basically a modded out Mercedes Sprinter van. You're not driving. You can have a bunch of people in there to and from the airport, to and from events, concerts, sporting events, take meetings in there, whatever you want. And the deal that they're offering all of our listeners is a $0 base rate. So there's no minimum, and then it's only $2.10 a mile based on a round trip. So if you're traveling, you know, 50 miles to and from, it's a couple $100, roughly speaking, in that round trip. And you'd be hard pressed to find a freaking Uber for that amount. Never mind if you're splitting it a few ways. But at that rate, be the man or be the gal who just covers it for people and, lets them arrive and leave in style.
Amen.
Well, let's go in and introduce both Clara and Chris. So, if I'm not mistaken, Landon, this is our first married couple that we brought on the show, and they were just super fun to have on. And there was a particular thing that we had unpacked with them that I want you to hit on here. But what were some of your takeaways and ahas from this episode?
Yeah, I mean, first, Clara and Chris are great. They're good friends. It's been fun to watch their journey. I knew Chris for years before he and Clara were together. And number one, their story on how they met, which you listen to in the episode, is pretty cool and unique, and at the same time was a big challenge, right? Because Clara was originally is from Canada. And through the process of meeting Chris in Mexico, and then trying to be able to get her to the US with immigration stuff was quite frankly a nightmare. But
They were
they,
just a handful of years too early if they just wait.
yeah, love finds a way. I literally told them, I said, yeah, why wouldn't you just go back down to Mexico and walk across the border at this point, right? So we had a good chuckle about that. But yeah, they got a great story there. And then, just now how they've become entrepreneurs, but they also have that entrepreneur relationship. Has been really cool to see, and I think what they're building is something special, and I'm excited to see where they take it.
Yeah, 100%. And just to hit on that a little bit more is, some folks listen to this and they love the idea of starting and running a business. Other people have entrepreneurial qualities about them, but they don't necessarily have the interest in running the business themselves and starting it themselves. And we go into in this episode the dichotomy between entrepreneurship and intrapreneurship. So if you find yourself in that stage where you don't necessarily want to take the risk of an entrepreneur, but you want to act like one, you can find a company in which you can be entrepreneurial in. So we'll be hitting on that as well. But let me more properly introduce both Clara and Chris Senkbile. So Clara, she's a marketing director at Soaring Winery, and is also deep in her journey of writing a screenplay about the immigrant story from the perspective of a Portuguese family. So we unpack a little bit of that story as well. And then Chris, he is a partner and consultant at Unico, which is a commercial insurance brokerage, but he's also a co-founder at Pharaoh, which is an insurtech, designed to support the broker and insured relationship. So I think you'll really enjoy this episode, and let's go ahead and dive right in. Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. That me, you really playing with your life. I'm about to come and run it all back. Well, Clara and Chris, welcome to the show. I know you guys both know Landon, and that's how we got connected, but it's nice to finally meet the two of you. Thanks for joining the show.
Thanks for having us.
Awesome. Well,
so you can't speak over me, Christopher.
Okay, I won't. I'll try not to. We need cues.
Well, I know that you guys are in different locations. That way you're unable to give each other the elbow or the kick under the table. So you've created some good separation between you two for today's show.
Yeah, it'll allow for the uncut version, like LT said. So it should be good.
Well, let's dive in. So, we're having both of you on for, a multitude of reasons, but one in particular that is pretty interesting is you guys are married. You're both entrepreneurial, one entrepreneur, the other intrapreneur, as we had discussed on our intro call. And we're certainly going to get into what that means, sort of the nuances and differences between the two, and how you can have success in both of those paths. But I want to start with you, Clara. So you're Portuguese and you were born in Portugal. You came to the States, but it wasn't necessarily, from my understanding, a silky smooth process of how that all came about. And that story in and of itself, my guess, there's some learning lessons in there. So walk us through how you made it to the States.
Yeah, I'm American now, and it's awesome. Short of wearing the USA tank top. So yes, I was born in Portugal in a small island called Pico in the Azores, and so Pico is part of Portugal, but it's in the middle of the Atlantic, so it's super small. And my parents immigrated to Toronto in the 80s. And I was 4 when I got to Toronto, Ontario, which was quite the experience. Anyhow, lived there most of my life. Took a trip to Mexico as a solo trip where I was going to eat tacos and do yoga. And in that trip, I met up with my best friend who was there on her honeymoon. And long story short, she met Chris at a resort, thought he was just a piece of pie, And I remember
charming as all get out.
So charming, and great eyes and energy and the whole thing, great legs. And she literally texted me and said, "Yo, what are you doing at this exact moment?" And I said, "I'm walking around Tulum." She goes, "Well, tomorrow morning, get dressed, put on your bikini, your shorts, bring a towel. We want to host you at the resort we're staying at." So they wanted to basically have me there for the day. And she goes, "Oh, ... There's a guy here from Omaha I want you to meet." And I said, interesting. No, thank you. And that was followed by
Omaha wasn't the
yeah, that's not a good lead in of yo, I got an Omaha guy for you.
She's in Toronto. It's colder in Toronto than it is in Omaha.
That's true.
Maybe. I mean, sure, depends on the day. But I was, I said, sure, I'll come and hang with you guys for a couple of hours. Do not introduce me to Omaha. That's how we started to name him. That was from there on in, he was known as Omaha. So long story short, I get to the resort, great spot. I'm like, oh man, this is super fancy. And a couple of tequilas in, possibly Sunstroke. My best friend's husband, whose name is also Chris, decides to go get our Chris Senkbile. And I'm sitting down, getting my tan on, and I see them both walking towards me. And it was really like a scene out of a book where there was like this moment, and there was lights, and maybe it was the sun behind him. I don't know. But as he walked towards me, I really did have a moment of, oh shit. Damn it. That's what Omaha looks like, huh? Great. Awesome. So I get up and we start chatting, and the conversation never ended. I was back in Omaha a month later. We dated on and off for a year, and I was back in Omaha the following year. Spent some time here just getting to know the Huskers and what it would be like to live in a small town. Not that Omaha is a small town, but small enough for me. And then he proposed and we got married. And then now I'm living in Omaha. Now, in between there was some problems with immigration. Isn't that right, Chris?
There's a lot of problems with integration. Yeah.
Would have been a hell of a lot easier under this current administration. You
Yeah.
you could have just walked right across back from
know,
Tulum and just walk right in.
LT, that was kind of the deal, man. So I'll fast forward us a little bit to sort of that entire process. But we were set to get married in Mexico basically a year later. And Clara was going to fly into the States under a T1 labor visa that our immigration attorney helped us out with. And she gets to the border, and they don't give her the stamp of approval. And so she calls me. She's like, "Hey, problem." We work out some paperwork, like overnight it. She goes back the next day, try and catch her flight so we can meet up in Omaha, then to head to Mexico. And
can I give them a visual real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
Imagine like I was so spry that morning. I was just excited. I had my little white dog, my luggage, and everything was in storage. And then I had like a huge luggage that was taken over to Omaha. And I'm just like, here I am, paperwork in hand and ready to go. And they're like, yeah, no, stamp. And I went, sorry. Yeah, no. So what exactly does that mean? And so continue.
Well, we had been assured, right? Like we had a friend in Omaha who ran a business that was going to hire Clara, and super qualified, high level kind of marketing position. And anyway, so this happens like 4 times. She's not getting through, right? So at this point, she's no fly. And we're like, well, we still have to get married. Like we have all this scheduled in Mexico. So she flies into Mexico via Toronto, me via Omaha. We meet up, spend about 8 days down there, getting married, honeymoon. And the whole time we're like in constant contact with our immigration attorney, trying to figure out like, how the heck do we get this chick into the country? And LT, like, that was my thought. I'm like, well, we're in Mexico. We could just literally walk right up across the border, like
crazy.
that.
Yep.
So we're like going through all these different iterations, trying to figure it out. Long story short, she goes back to Toronto from Mexico because we couldn't get her into the country. I go back to Omaha, and over the course of next 2.5 months, we can't get her into the country. So she's got to go back and get a job, get a car, get a residence, all those things established just for the purpose of being able to go back to border control and say, hey, like, I'm a resident of Canada and I plan on continuing to be one. And so 2.5 months later, end of July, she went back, having reestablished all those things, flew into Dallas. I flew down to Dallas. So she got in, and we drove back up to Omaha because we're like so scared of like going through the airport at that point, and we had got her into the country. And then we got formally married in the States
2
what,
months later.
2 months later, courthouse style. And then she stayed for what, 8 months before we could get you your green card, give or take, I think.
Yeah, that was tough. That
Yeah,
was
so
tough.
she
not
couldn't
being able
really
to
work that whole
travel.
time. That's just like the whole immigration process is ridiculous in that way, because we tried to do it the right way, right? And that didn't work. She would have been a tax paying, member of society like
Right
day
away.
one. And then we bring her in anyways, roundabout way, and she's got 8 months of like not being able to pay any taxes before we can get her a green card and get her a job. And so you kind of understand, like, going through that process, like why people circumvent the system, or try and figure out how to circumvent the system, because it doesn't really work very good, especially for somebody coming from freaking Canada.
It's
He's
ran
like,
by the
it's right
government.
there.
Yeah, I haven't met anything that's really well ran yet that is run by the government. So that is no surprise.
Well stated.
Yeah, I'm starting to figure that out. And after all this, I turn to Chris quite often and I say to him, if you ever question my dedication, love, and commitment to you, please just look back at the last however many years of our life and everything that had to transpire to get me to where I am at this exact moment. So yes, I'm a romantic. I believe that it was all meant to be, but man, we worked for it.
Yes,
What
you
was
did.
so you're officially an American citizen now?
No. So I have a green card and I am a permanent resident as of right now. I actually can apply for my passport, I think next year, if I'm not mistaken. I just don't know if I will. The only
Yeah.
advantage it gives me is that I can vote. And right now I'm like, hey,
Do it.
um,
We need all the votes we can get.
I know, seriously. But I do have a Canadian passport and then I have my Portuguese passport. And if you have an American passport, you can only have one more. So I'm still just trying to figure out what would be best for us because I want to retire in Portugal. So we'll see.
Chris, do you want to retire in Portugal?
I was just gonna say, hint, hint, Chris.
I hope so.
I mean, the surfing's great, the weather's great. Clearly the people are beautiful. So, I'm an easy sell.
Wow,
And
you
I
just
could live out of the
cleaned that
box.
up in the moment, Chris.
Oh, I saw that. He was really walking that back real quick.
Walking the tightrope there a little bit.
I saw that oh shit moment in your brain.
Yep. Yes, I
happens
do,
quite
honey.
often.
Oh man. So Chris, walk us through. So let's start with the entrepreneurial side, and then I want to get into the intrapreneurial side with you, Clara, and help juxtapose that together. So Chris, walk us through a little bit about your professional background. Like, how'd you get started? Did you go to school? Do you have a job right after? Did you start a business? You have a business now. Like, walk us through kind of the genesis of your professional story.
Yeah, man, I'm a typical Nebraska farm boy, jock. Went to college to play football, not to go to school. No idea what I wanted to do with my life. And I got into well, I'll back up a little bit. My dad was entrepreneurial. He had a ag dealership that he ran off of our farm for 20 plus years. And so I kind of saw like that sort of drive, that hustle, him just every day like grinding to make it all work, for our family. And it started small, he was selling, used irrigation pipe and equipment and things like that. And then it progressed into selling pivots, and then it kind of started to become more of a thing. And they eventually got like a shop in town, and kind of commercialized it a little bit more. So I kind of saw that whole journey growing up, and always had like a desire for that, but also like didn't have, probably the awareness to do it, and to, finances or whatever, to kind of like, that was always felt like a big hurdle to me. So I started working in banking coming out of school, which is cool because I got to see a bunch of businesses and how they operate, understand the economics behind them. Did that for a couple of years, and then actually worked for a franchise group, traveled all over the country, learning the franchise business, supporting franchisees, which was just another good like education, and that's seeing the hustle of like franchises getting up and running and what it took for them. And then in 2014, I started working for what is now a top 90 commercial insurance brokerage called Unico. And again, kind of got the opportunity to work with a bunch of business owners over the course of the last 10 years doing that. And that's actually still my day job. Partner there at the firm, and LT knows a bunch of the guys over there too. And been a real blessing, great opportunity. I was actually full circle. I was on a reward trip for Unico in Mexico when I met Clara. So that story gets passed around.
Shout out Unico and their trips, making love
They still
happen.
say it was the best
Making
trip to
love
date.
happen. That's exactly. And you know what? It gets like, Shane Landon, but like every single time we talk about our President's Club's trips, like whether it's before they're planned and we're trying to get people motivated or after it's planned, that story comes up. It's like Shane's, favorite story to tell and
Who
motivate.
knows? You may meet your wife.
You never know.
Right?
Never
Boys
know.
better get out there and hustle.
That's it.
You two could have this one day.
Something
But
like
I mean,
that.
in all reality, I knew you through a transition time, Chris, and you needed some Clara in your life, dude. I mean, you had, to be honest, you'd been shit on, went through some tough times. And knowing you as the family man that I do, it was tough to see you having to go through some of that. So in all seriousness, Clara, thanks for having my boys back, because it was a while there where he didn't have that big Clark Kent smile on his face. And it wasn't long after I heard about Clara that I knew things were going in the right direction. So for sure.
Well, that means a lot. And the funny part is I feel more of an angel for me than I
He
was
does
for
that.
him. So
He does that too. Yeah.
So sweet. Hey, they say, the woman behind the guy, and I'm not even like the guy, but I've got a great woman. So that's
it's a team effort.
It goes a long ways.
Yeah.
Sure does. Yeah.
Yeah, they're, life has a way of kicking you in the teeth. And I know you guys know that. And the longer you live, the more opportunities you've got to get kicked in the teeth, I think. But, I think that's the kind of some of the foundational stuff back to the farm and just growing up, learning how to have some grit and work through challenges. And, I wake up the next day and keep on grinding. So, and that's really like, for me, the journey to starting a business, that's really like, what drove it. I had those experiences with all these different business owners, banking, insurance, etc. And I got to see what sort of what it took, and super ignorant, right? Like on what it actually takes until you get into it. But at least you have a little bit of an idea. And so I had the benefit of starting a business in my business. And that's, not everybody can say that, right? So I have this long journey of growing a book of business at Unico and growing my portfolio and all those things. And every day I'm learning, right, about the business, the brokerage business, insurance side, learning about customers and how they interact. And that really was what informed us starting Pharaoh. And speaking of Clara and just how amazing she is, that's the deal. I called her on a Friday afternoon and I said, hey, I cannot get this sort of idea out of my head. I think I have to do something about it. And Claire's like, ride or die, dude. Like, let's go, man.
What was I thinking? What was I
I think she's since regretted that, like slightly at times. But yeah, she was like right there for it. And that was really the start. Like we went on a trip, her and I, the next week. I was totally like not present for her on that vacation because I was consumed with this and like working on it while we were gone, and came back like fully committed to getting started and rocking and rolling with it.
Pharaoh was a COVID baby.
Yeah.
Yes.
COVID baby.
And just for context, Chris, on the Unico side of things, obviously, you're writing commercial lines of business so you're working with entrepreneurs, you're going through renewal stuff all the time. And basically it was you working through that process continuously, seeing an opportunity, to kind of streamline that process, make it better for your customers. Am I correct on saying that's kind of where Pharaoh's genesis started and what
Nailed
its
it.
goal or mission is to do, right?
Yeah, you nailed it. The commercial insurance, you're correct, Landon. The commercial insurance space is much like the sort of fintech space was, even 20 years ago, before it started to see any automation, digitization, sort of 21st century sort of behaviors. And insurance is like way behind that. Big reason there's a lot of fragmentation in our space that sort of prohibits, meaning a ton of insurance companies sort of prohibits automation. And then there's really kind of a duopoly in legacy technology that just sort of locks the space down from innovation as well. And so, my first day on the job, I'm like, oh man, like we're still, kind of stone tablet, and a chisel over here in this deal. And
If it ain't broke, don't fix it
well,
mentality.
yeah, to a degree, but
They
like,
are, yeah.
so, at that time, Landon, like the that was like the super hectic part of life. Those were some of the hard moments. And so I didn't really have the capacity to think about like, hey, could I do something to actually affect change, disrupt this a little bit? And that didn't come till about 5 years, 6 years later. So I started in 2014, and that didn't come till 2020. And that's when I called Clara and said, hey, like, I think, I've got this sort of capacity to lean into this now and really start to try and, push for some change. And it's a space with endless opportunity to start to drive some automation to that process, to the renewal cycle, or generally what we call, Pharaoh, the insured experience, right? Like bringing that insured experience into the 21st century. So endless opportunity to solve problems there, but also like very marked challenges to doing so, just because of the way the industry is set up. And so we've taken a really sort of bootstrappy, slow burn sort of approach where we're like, hey, instead of getting overcapitalized, getting out over our skis, and trying to like disrupt a space that maybe isn't quite ready to be disrupted, let's just build and learn and grow, and take it a day at a time. And so we've been able to survive, an insurtech sort of bubble deflating and money stopped flowing into the space. Like we've been able to survive a lot of that just because we've really taken a sort of inside industry, small ball sort of approach to how we've built this thing. And I think that's going to give us an opportunity to, be ready when the industry is ready, if that makes sense.
And I think
We were a little early.
a lot of, listeners should take, note of that, because one of the perks here, Chris, is, correct me if I'm wrong, but you still had your day job, right?
100%.
So at least you're able to still pay the bills, on that side of things. And like you said, kind of slow burn this thing, where I think a lot of people sometimes get in trouble. Now it can go one of two ways, right? They can burn the boats per se and say, screw it, I'm all in 100%. And that's I think it either takes that or you go the other way, but you can't half-ass this thing and be in the middle, right?
Yep.
You've either got to say, okay, I'm going to keep some recurring revenue over here, slow burn this thing, build it, or it's balls to the wall. I got to go now because
Scary.
I've put everything on the line and go, right? So
Yep.
I think that's a good piece of information for our listeners to know is, hey, you don't always just have to roll this thing out and quit your day job. In fact, I would say hang on to that steady paycheck as long as you can.
I think it's certainly been a blessing for us. Again, shout out to Unico on that front in terms of just giving me the flexibility and the freedom to do it. And I do think too, like as I talk to young folks who are contemplating like, what do I do? Or hey, I am entrepreneurial, but like I don't really know in what capacity. I'm like, man, go work in an industry and learn it.
Let it show you what you should be doing.
And let it show you. That's exactly right.
Well,
That's
it's
funny.
interesting.
that-
Oh, go ahead,
sorry.
Clara.
No, that's okay. I was gonna just piggyback on Landon, let it show you. I think what Pharaoh is today and what it was when we first talked about it is a little different. What did you say, Chris? It's, you know, the vision that we had for what it was going to be and how we would get there it keeps changing back and forth. The overall idea is the same, but we've had to make some adaptations and
Pivot along the way.
Some pivots,
exactly.
as they say.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Because the marketplace was showing us what it needed and how to get there. Right now, status quo, things are changing. And with the change, we change. So it'll be interesting to see.
Got to be flexible as a business owner. I say that all the time. You know,
Oh, yeah.
you can
Absolutely.
think you can have the best laid plans in the world, and then the world's going to say, watch this, and slap you in the face. So you
Yeah,
better
hold
be,
my beer
better be willing
real
to,
quick.
yeah.
Yeah, well, expectations are an interesting thing. That's been probably one of the biggest sort of educations I've gained through the process is you gain ignorance, right? Like I saw entrepreneurs, I saw like that process and kind of have like this expectation, this idea, and then you get into it, get kicked in the teeth a little bit. And I think the thing I always kind of remind Clara too, because it has changed and evolved and we've had pivots is, yeah, stick with me, babe. I'm going to be a 20 year overnight success one day, you know, like one
He says
day.
that all the time.
How many years have you been saying that? Let's see how many years we have left.
Yeah, we're
in.
still,
Yeah.
we've got about 17. So, you know, we haven't even hit the apex yet.
There you go. Well, it's interesting. Landon, I almost view Chris's role at Unico almost like Northwestern, where you're and let me finish this thought so I don't sound like a jerk when I say this, but it's less so like you're an entrepreneur and more so you have a platform in which you can be entrepreneurial. And there's limitations to what you can do when there's a platform and a company that you're a part of, even though you have the freedom to build your business to the moon, so to speak. But then also and I want to kind of understand yours and Clara's process on the ground level of starting Pharaoh, when you realized, oh shit, a company like Unico actually provides a lot of aspects of the business for me to be able to thrive and focus on business development and not focus in the weeds with running the business. So what was that process like together in figuring out all the other things that a business entails that you didn't have to worry about at Unico? You just got to go build relationships and sell, frankly. So what was that like?
Yeah,
It's
man.
fascinating, by the way.
Yeah.
I found it fascinating because I had run my own business before, but at a completely different type of business, completely different everything. And so this was when we started talking about funding and seed rounds and all this verbiage that I had never heard before. I'm like, this is cool because I still am learning quite a bit with Chris.
Do you watch Shark Tank?
No.
Oh, that's a crash course on this stuff.
Is it really? Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe I have to get on that.
So huge fan of Shark Tank. It's been a few years since I've watched, but huge fan of Shark Tank. Yeah, man, I think that the benefit of the flexibility of the way our business is structured, right, is the parallels to Northwestern very similar, right? Like I have the ability to go out, manage relationships, acquire new relationships, and maintain existing, and our back office is really set up to to help sort of manage the day-to-day there, right? And so I think there was certainly flexibility for me to to spend some brain cells, some mental energy early on what it looks like to start building this thing, and so we had some some wonderful help along the way. Omaha Startup Collaborative, and we got a grant from the state of Nebraska early on, and some things that like really kind of get us moving. But but that was, that's been the benefit. And I think the Unico side of things too, there's still expectations there though, right? Like at the end of the day, I'm in a sales role and you got to keep earning and keep growing, and you're kind of as relevant as the last dollar you brought in, right? So I have been fortunate to continue to be able to do that at a pretty high clip over the last few years. I contrast that with somebody who, doesn't have that freedom or flexibility. And that's like, I don't know that we could have done it, right? Because I talk about seasons in life, and, there's good seasons, bad seasons, hard seasons, whatever, easy seasons, restful. And at a certain point, like, balancing two in perpetuity, that's a long season, right? And so, we've had to, sort of figure out how to manage that and sort of create boundaries or create balance in that context for sure.
Yeah, it's interesting. I'm rolling out something new, a new service offering in one of my consulting companies, and the whole idea beyond like the value proposition and whatnot is to create a more like leveraged offer, which looks like Pharaoh is as well. But it's amazing. You're keeping everything afloat full time. That's currently happening. And then you have another full-time job to create this leverage. And it's funny, similar to the conversation you guys shared, I share with my wife, because there'll be times and we schedule an intentional date night every week to like make sure that we are very intentional about time together. But still there's times where I have to remind her, like, babe, just trust me. Like, trust me. It's all gonna pay off. Just trust me. And it's funny because, like, since we met, like, I was here in my career, and then it was here and here and here and here. And she's like, well, when are you gonna reach the point
Where's
where
the ceiling?
And I'm like, oh, well, that's the thing.
There isn't one.
There's no
Correct. You guys are nuts. All three of you.
We just had
Green
that.
and growing or ripe and rotting.
We just had that conversation on Friday. She's like, wait, what?
Well, think so, like, as an example, like, I'm good, and I'm not saying that this is a good thing. This is just what it is right now. Like, when we go on the vacation, like, to me, a week is way too long. Like, way too long. I'm good for a long weekend, and then like get me back to, like, I miss it. I get stir crazy if I just unplug, to the extent that the last vacation we went on, it was only a weekend, but I put my out of office up. I never abide by my out of office, but this time I literally wrote in my out of office, for those of you who know that I don't usually abide by my out of office, just to set expectations in all bold, I am abiding by it this time. Like, I felt the need to say that. And then I took my phone and put it on airplane mode, so that nothing could come through. And then my wife was the one with the GPS and the music and all that type of stuff. But it was interesting that for me to actually unplug, I needed to turn this thing into a paperweight. Otherwise, there would be something where I'm like, oh, I want to do that. Like, I want to get back to my desk and start working on that. So I don't know what my point is here. I think my
big
point
boy
is,
moves.
well, I was saying, I guess my point is
You're killing me, David.
that,
You're killing me, man. You're setting unrealistic expectations.
no, because what I'm saying is, the three of us have problems, and Clara and my wife and Tay can help us through those problems.
Amen.
Right.
I always say that balance is the key to life. I say that all the time, especially to my kids. And if you think about it, it applies to every single aspect of your life. Wherever there's an imbalance, it's just not going to work. You need to figure it out. Yin and yang, like, it's in nature even. And I do think I push for balance when I see that we're like, okay, like, we're teeter-tottering here a little bit. And I think Chris appreciates that, because sometimes he doesn't know how to balance.
We'll
Well,
say,
it's,
well,
it,
otherwise it'd just be all gas all the time for us, right? So we do
well,
need that in all
Oh
honesty.
my gosh.
well,
Yes, all gas all the time.
well, in relation to that, like, I'll like if I, don't go to or if I don't go to the gym in the morning, usually I'll go for a walk. And if I go to the gym in the morning, I'll usually go for a walk at night. So like after a long day, I'm like, hey babe, like what next? Like what are we doing now? She's like, I'm exhausted. I'm like, well, why are you exhausted? She goes, just watching you all day. Like you're exhausting to watch. Because we both work from home. And I chuckle, but to the point that's being made about balance, I think I like the phrase blended life, but I am recognizing and starting to acknowledge that as much as I don't like to unplug, when I do, even if it's for a day or an afternoon, and sort of practice like a Sabbath on a Sunday and like actually don't do anything, it feels awesome. But then
Yeah, you're
I'm
recharged.
recharged, exactly, recharged. So I wouldn't do that on my own. So the uh constant reminders around me are very much
Yes.
appreciated, babe.
Thanks, babe.
So, with that said, Clara, I want to go back to something that you had mentioned. So, generally speaking, I want you to kind of share your professional journey as well. But generally speaking, we'll call it a marketing umbrella is sort of the main focus. And you've done that in a multitude of different capacities. But then you also mentioned that you had started a company too that was totally different than
Mhm.
Pharaoh, totally different industry. So walk us through your intrapreneurial and
Yeah.
entrepreneurial journey that you had with the company that you started.
Yeah, and I didn't go to school for marketing. My major was sociology and minored in psychology, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, so
But then I
she's
got
psychoanalyzing, all the time. So that's fun.
uh,
But sorry, go ahead.
It sounds like a pleasure.
it's so fun though. I love it. Um, yeah, so after university, I actually was a flight attendant for a little bit, and then had a job offer at CTV television, and that's like the equivalent of an NBC here in the States. And it was a pretty
Not
cool
not
job, and I
not a
loved.
not a Fox or one of those.
Hell no, no, or CNN, none of those. This is when cable was big. Okay, I'm dating myself here, but that's the truth. And so I worked there for 19 years in the I just dated myself again, in the marketing advertising department. And I did different roles there, but we were working on the in-house advertising for all these different properties that we had. And so I did that for a very long time, but I always felt I have a creative heart for sure and a creative mind. And I always felt it was just stunted. And one day I'm actually just sitting at my desk and thought, I wonder what it would be like to develop my own clothing line, and in particular, swimwear. Challenging for Toronto, seeing that summer is 2 months out of the year. And this was before or right on the cusp of when Instagram was even like becoming a big thing. It wasn't. And I decided to challenge myself on creating the brand, coming up with the name, marketing it, selling it, website, fashion shows, the whole thing. And fashion's always been really near and dear to my heart. And so is architecture. So I blended the two and I made some really cool swimwear. And I did that for quite some time. And that was very cool for me. That was an experience I'll never forget. Um, and I still think about it till this day. It was just one of those experiences that really helped shape you. And I think really helped me actually when I came to help
And
Chris with
actually
Pharaoh branding.
super successful with it and had a lot of sort of big name, sort of fashion leading, sort of iconic type people and or magazines and or publications carrying
Yeah.
it. But the thing that like I think is super interesting is what Clara was designing how many years ago, babe?
In 2012.
So back in 2012 is the stuff that's just now like starting to get super like mainstream popularized, like from a design perspective. So she was leading the charge back then.
I was a
So
little ahead of
suits
my
these
time.
days on the lady side are a lot cheekier. Are you saying you were ahead of the curve on the cheekier side of things, Clara, or
Oh,
what?
yes. Are you kidding?
Oh,
It
yes.
was, I actually, it was so, because I'm Portuguese, but I also have Brazilian on my mom's side, and then I actually have family in Brazil on my dad's side. But in Brazil,
Very
it's
much.
called the Brazilian
Yeah.
cut for a reason. And so that wasn't really seen much back then. And so I had a lot of that, and I had a lot of cutouts, and I had hoodies for the surfer chicks. And it was very unique and different and architectural. The design itself was very architectural. And so people were like, can you really wear this? No, stick with me. Can you really wear this to the pool? I'm like, sure, but this is a Vegas, Miami beach club vibe. And at the time, that was just kicking off. Like, you knew about it, but it wasn't as popular as it is now. I
Yeah.
mean, there's Nikki Beach and, a million other beach clubs around the world. And that's what I was designing. I was designing for the swim and strut. And that was my tagline. So yeah, sure,
Swim
you
and
could swim in it. The
strut.
fabrics
Oh,
were
damn, I
incredible.
I'd
like
like to
that.
see. I'd like to see David and Landon strut, swim and strut.
Yeah. It's
I'm sure they do.
it would leave a lot to be desired. I assure you that.
Oh man. What did you so you go from, marketing at a television company to then starting a swimwear business and frankly
Mhm.
getting a crash course on
Yes.
business, but seemingly had no experience or training or anything like that as it relates to starting a business from scratch. And there's a lot of folks who listen to this who find themselves in a job, find themselves in school, and they want to become entrepreneurial, but they don't necessarily know where to go to learn that stuff. What were some of the resources, or did you just
Yeah.
FIFO, which stands for figure it the fuck out? Like, how did
Yeah.
you how did you actually go
Honestly.
about leveraging the resources around you, if any, to know what the heck to do?
Yeah, there were no chat GBT. It was Tony GBT, which is my brother who's been an entrepreneur all his life. So one thing I am is resourceful, and I just made phone calls. I called my brother so many times and I said, hey, I have this idea. What do you think? And he's like, do it, in his Portuguese accent. Just, baptism by fire, honestly. A lot of it I learned as I went. And I again let the market dictate what would work, what wouldn't. And just really got my name out there. So with a clothing line, swimwear line, fashion, it is all about appearances, right? So I wanted to be wherever people could see me. And at the time, it necessarily wasn't social media. It was being in the clubs doing fashion shows. And so I did a lot of that. And again, I called in some contacts. So working at a TV station, I asked, I made a lookbook. I had never made one before in my life, but made one. I did a photo shoot, called in some favors there, and then distributed this lookbook and got a call within half an hour from a producer at Fashion Television. And they said, we want to do a segment on you. And I was like, on me? Like, I'm not even really a fashion designer here. I'm just having fun. And I never forgot that. I just kept having fun, even if maybe it wasn't for everybody, and that was okay. I found who it was for, and I made some sales. So, and that's, I think, a piece of advice that I would give to people, even with Pharaoh. It's not for everybody, but it's definitely for some people, and it will.
I'm not for everybody.
Exactly.
Let's be honest.
Same.
Cheers
But
to
definitely
that.
for a couple
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's okay. But continue to have fun, and if you're a resourceful person, call in those favors, make those phone calls.
Well, there's a saying that's always stuck with me that I got from a mentor of mine, actually landed when I was at Northwestern. And it was talking about moving up market, so if you're meeting with folks and they're making 100 grand,
Right.
it's like, well, how do you get referred to the people making $1 million? And he said, he goes, you know what I did? I was like, what? He goes, I remember the saying, you have not because you ask not. And I just straight up started asking people, who do you know that makes $1 million a year? And lo and behold,
Yep.
I started getting introduced and hanging out with people making $1 million a year, and grew my business substantially as a result. So I think, making sure that you're not hesitant to ask for help, but also I would imagine, certainly with, I think you said your brother.
Mhm.
Yep, your brother, and folks that you worked with at the TV station, like, you spent a lot of time pouring into them, adding
Mhm.
value to them,
Relationships.
to where now you had an opportunity to withdraw from that relationship. And frankly, they had an opportunity to pour that love and value back
Oh,
into
so
you.
great. Yeah. And I love to be a resource for people who are taking that next step, because it takes a lot of balls. Honestly, for lack of a better word, it really does take a lot to put yourself out there. And I remember being asked in, newspapers. They did an article on Nua, which was the name of the brand. And I remember them saying, so how are you going to figure out if you were successful with this? And then I said, I already am. It wasn't
I'm
monetary for
talking to
me.
you.
Yeah, yeah. That's exactly it. You nailed it. As a kid, I'd watch fashion television. All of a sudden, I was being featured. Success. That to me was a winning day, and made everything worth it.
And what's your main sort of entrepreneurial focus now? So my understanding is that you're helping with Pharaoh. Also, you're doing marketing, if I'm not mistaken,
Mhm.
at a place called Soaring Wings. And I'm
Correct.
sure that there's been a lot of things that you've been able to learn throughout your entrepreneurial journey that make you a more effective marketer as well.
Mhm.
So walk us through kind of what you have going on
Can
now.
I just interject super quick?
Go for it.
Um, so when I came to Clara to ask her to help with marketing for Pharaoh, I was like, well, this will be like, like, of course, like slam dunk, no brainer. And so I sit her down one night and I'm like, babe, like we need you, like you're the person. And she's like, yeah, no, like I've been helping, and she had been helping, but we needed help like kind of full time for a period of time. I'm like,
Season.
I need you to come over, like, just get us kind of rocking and rolling here for like the next 12, 18 months. And she's like, huh. She's like,
Working with your husband,
She's like,
so
yeah.
appealing.
She's like, I don't know. I'm telling you guys, like, she made me work so hard for it for like
He
2
was so
weeks.
mad.
What's the
He's
Oh,
like, how
I
do
was
you
benefits
like
not say
package?
yes?
grumpy
What's
about
the
it.
comp schedule? Yeah,
Oh
what's
yeah.
his job pay?
That's
Oh,
one thing I've learned with Chris's negotiation. I'm like, listen, these are the rules. Do you
Yep.
understand me?
well, I
Yep.
immediately regretted all of the like discussions we'd had about negotiation, because I immediately saw
Tables
Came
have
back to
turned.
she
you.
was now using that on me in the moment. So anyway, sorry, go ahead,
Yeah.
Dave. I apologize.
No, that's okay. I love uh I love the branding aspect when it comes to businesses. I don't care what business it is. I love the idea of establishing a brand, which means a logo, a voice, what it feels like to approach the brand, to be in the brand, all those things. And I learned a lot about that when I worked in media, for sure, because we were doing that with our television shows and how we were promoting them. Um, and so when he came to me with this idea for Pharaoh, he didn't have a name. And I said, we need a name. Let's make it a thing. Once it's a thing, it almost takes on this life form that now you're nurturing. It's like a plant. It was like the coolest thing for me, to see a brand from nothingness to like what it is today. And so we came up with the name Pharaoh, which means, by the way, steel in Portuguese, because I thought this was going to be a very strong application and platform, and it is. And then we built around that, so that was super cool. And then now I'm working with Soaring Wings Winery, which is a very dope, beautiful winery in Springfield, Nebraska. And their branding was, let's be nice here, just a little archaic and boring, to be honest. And so with the new owner, he said, what are we going to do with this thing? I'm like, I got you, bro.
We're gonna make
And
these grapes
so-
sexy.
Yeah, let's just zhuzh it up. And so I worked with Grain and Mortar for quite some time, establishing a really cool brand, and it's there. Now we just have to make the winery look like the brand. So that all takes some time.
I would interject too, if you ever get any downside or downtime. I don't know if you've listened to episodes on our pod yet or not, but Christine Weeks, David, with Eleanor Marketing and Creative. I think
Yeah.
we should link that up because she's got an awesome business that I think you would
really?
love. Yeah, listen to that episode, and if you want an introduction there, we'd be happy to make it, because she is
would love it.
building a machine and does some really cool stuff with her team, and they're awesome.
Yeah,
That's
good person
great.
to collaborate with as well. Plus, she's a fellow powerhouse female
Cool.
as well. So I think
Love it.
you guys would enjoy each other.
I love that.
Let's walk through. I'm going to start with Chris first. So from the outside looking in, and then in my own personal life as well, having both spouses who are kind of going balls to the wall and are highly motivated and driven can be incredibly fun, but also at times we need to be delicate in certain ways. I'm curious to know what life is like behind the scenes, since you're both running 1,000,000 miles an hour. And
The PG version.
well, I was gonna say, we'll ask Chris first, and then Clara will come to you for the truth. So
You can back clean up. Clara can back clean up.
That was like the most intelligent way to ask that question, to go to me first, because Claire's gonna clean that right up. Yeah, man, I think the Claire said it best. The balance is a super interesting thing to strike. What I find is you can balance the schedule. That's one thing, right? Like, hey, we're protecting date night, or this opportunity to connect, and that, but like that, that sort of table stakes. What Claire's helped me realize is that's not enough, actually, because my mental is still so wrapped up in all that's going on that even when we're together, she's like, bro, you are not here. And I'm like, and she's the best, because she does not pull punches, she's just like, yeah, bro, like this is not.
Well, I love how you worded it. Clara's helped me realize.
That goes back to that psych major, man. I told you, she's always psych.
Like, snap out of it, would you?
But no, it was my idea. I swear, I came to it all by myself.
Yeah, oh my gosh. Well, I get to take credit for a few things in life, because she is a powerhouse. But man, that's the biggest thing, like, for me, is just figuring out how to find like the mental space and the recharge days. So we've really identified, like, we have to prioritize like shutdown days for me, especially just so I can get like the mental space to be present. But yeah, man, I think that's probably the biggest challenge, is like physically you're there, you have your moments where you're kind of like, ships passing or whatever. But like figuring out how to like mentally, sort of stay engaged, inspired with one another. And so we work really hard on that. And that's either inputs like,
We choose to work on it every day. Yeah.
Yeah, it's your typical like, hey, let's have some other inputs than just our work, so that's podcasts like your guys's, or sort of business oriented books. Then it's like, hey, like, what's just some fun stuff we can like learn together and then talk about, and sort
like aliens.
Yeah, like aliens, or or evolution versus creation, or
Ooh, that's a big one.
Yeah, as you say, we just
or like we get into some very lively debates.
Politics, aliens, creation, evolution. Yeah, those all sound like safe topics to
I
chat
kid
about.
you not. That is a Monday night at Clara and Senkbile. That is not even a lie.
Well, it is a cool reminder, because I try to I'm trying to continue to get better at this, but so like I work from home, my wife works from home, and then every now and again I'll get a comment around like, hey, I feel like we haven't like hung out at all. We need to spend some time together. I'm like, man, my initial reaction is like, what are you talking about? We're like
We're
24/7
always
together,
together.
you know, but there's a difference. I've come to learn
My God.
there's a difference between proximity of, you know, with each
Mhm.
other and quality time together. Like even things like, you know, we've been doing some DIY stuff around the house and painting and doing wainscoting, and
It's looking
it's
good
funny.
too, by the way, listeners. I'm proud of
Thanks,
him.
Doug. And it's try your best, cock the rest, and slap some paint on there.
Amen.
So, but it was interesting because we were painting the other day, and I forget her exact words, but she said something like, I love this. This is so fun. Mind you, like I was listening to music, she was listening to a
Right.
podcast, and we were still, you know, chatting intermittently
Right.
throughout that. And then our AirPods died, and then, you know, we were with each other. But the even just working on
Yeah.
something together like that was
Do
quality
you know,
time.
do you know why that is? I'm going to teach you guys a couple of things here.
Please
Oh,
bring
boy,
it
here we
on.
go.
Oh, love it.
So it could be, actually, it could be anything that you're doing, whether it's you're putting together a shelf or painting or
Cooking
putting
dinner.
away groceries or going grocery shopping, anything
No,
like
she
that.
doesn't let me go grocery shopping with
No,
her.
my wife does not want me in the grocery
Yeah, no,
store.
Chris doesn't come with me either. But
Yeah.
the point is, you're doing something, you're intentionally doing something that's not related to your work and the thing that you're super passionate about. What we want is to know that you're still super passionate about other things that include us. And so it doesn't have to be big. It's just the time you take to go buy that card for her birthday, or to think about a book that she might like and send it her way, or a song or a podcast. All of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, okay, he's thinking about me. All right, cool. It doesn't even have to be a lot. It's those little things, I think, that just keep us going. And it could be just a couple times a week. And that would, for me anyway, that's
Don't mind the
enough.
fact that I have those little things in my calendar, so I don't forget.
Don't
Same,
give it
bro.
away, dude.
I
Don't
was
tell
just
him
gonna say the
yourself.
same thing.
It's
Like,
supposed to be organized on our end, but appear random and thoughtful. Don't give away the
Oh,
secrets,
we're
but
so onto
listeners,
you
write that
guys.
down.
my Siri reminder literally went off today. My wife's birthday is tomorrow. Shout out to happy birthday. This won't be out till afterwards.
Happy
But my
birthday.
Siri reminder went out today to go get her a birthday card.
So you're also married to a Leo. Interesting. I like
Yeah.
it.
a psycho, as I call her, but God bless her, I love her. So
Hey, don't call us psycho. My birthday is in a couple weeks, and I'm a Leo, so
yeah. Well,
There
point in
you
case.
have
Although
it.
I am
This
a
is
little
all making such great sense to me right now.
oh
Yeah.
man. Well,
And I think the other takeaway from that for all the gentlemen listening is big things come in small packages, right? Clara, that's what you said. It doesn't have to be big. So there you go,
Or
boys.
Sometimes,
oh
on
man.
occasion.
So Clara, now your job is to tell us the truth. So Chris just shared with us what it's like behind the scenes and what you guys are working on from your perspective. What's it like balancing your professional passions with your personal passions, with your relational passions?
Yeah, so Chris and the kids are my priority. They were first when I met them, and they still are. So with that said, I love my work, and I try to do a good job at balancing the two. And so what I mean by that is I prioritize, right? So I know we have a blended family. They're my stepkids, and I love those little monkeys to death. And I want to make their time with us super special. And so I'm very cognizant of that. So I know, all right, Tuesday nights I'm doing a cool dinner. We're gonna have activities outside. We're gonna play a game together, and I'm there. Work is not, I don't think about work when they're here. When they go back, I go right into my day. And so again, there's that word that I keep throwing around, which is balance. I just know where the priority lies there, and taking care of Chris. I make his smoothie every morning. I make sure that he has all these different allergy, guys. It's like super sexy.
Oh, here we go.
So like
He's
it's
not
extremely
Superman.
sexy.
So, oh, we found his
Allergies are his kryptonite. Yeah.
Yeah.
It really is.
They so
honestly.
are, man. They so are.
But
Grass
there
and
are
the
certain
sun
things-
and
Yeah.
But there are certain things that I do make sure he has the snacks that he likes at night and his smoothie. And so I prioritize him. And then I prioritize myself at night. I go to the gym. We go together, but we do not work out together. And that's by design. I just couldn't do it. And so, yeah, I really, we're multitaskers at the end of the day. And so I am able to do multiple things at once. You're welcome, Chris. And so
Thank you.
it's the balance again. It's just prioritizing and balancing.
God
where
bless you for
can.
it. As I would tell you, I don't, obviously Taylor and I don't work together. And unlike you get, all of you here, I don't think it would work that well for my wife and I to actually work together. It might, but probably
you're
not.
a pleasure to work
But-
with, Landon.
Yeah. But I will say, Clara, everything you just said is exactly what my bride does for me. Like, and because I struggle putting priority time on like, hey, we need to go out on the boat tonight as a family and we don't need to have a bunch of
Right.
people on the boat. Like we just need some us time. And she's
Yeah.
good at doing that. Right. She's
Yes.
also my daughter is her stepdaughter and she's mom to her, to be honest. And she's
That's awesome.
always present with her. And she knows my weird diet as well, which is like a 7-year-old child. So, and I just
Allergic-
think that-
allergic to adulting.
yes. But I mean, I
Oh,
think it
you have
speaks to
allergies
the
too.
fact that yes, to anything healthy. So it's so nice and refreshing because that allows, but she always just lets me, she always trusts me. And that's the biggest
Yeah.
thing, right? Like on this new real estate venture, it's like, hey, we're going to throw a sizable amount at this. And she's like, yep, trust
Sure.
you, good to go,
That does come down to trust for sure.
Yeah.
Like I tell him all the time, I'm like, if you think it's a good idea, I'm all on board. There is
Yeah.
no like, but yeah, I don't know, I might ask questions, because I want to be in the know, but I always trust him, and that's also very important.
Yeah, and
That
I think
trust.
from our standpoint, as the man and provider protector role,
Yeah. Mhm.
to have your wife and your best friend's endorsement it means a ton, right? I mean, and
Oh, yeah.
you've got some stake in the game when she says, "Yep, I know you can do it. Go handle it." And that's,
Which, by the
to
way,
me,
we
means
still
a ton.
want, regardless of what society says right now, I still want my man to be a man. I need him to
Yep.
be strong and a protector and the head of the family. Oh my gosh, it just works that way.
Yeah.
He's not telling me what to do. I'm not telling him what to do. We just know our roles. We try and fulfill them as best we can. Sometimes we fail for sure, but we know what they are and it works. So I would never want to change that for anything.
And
Ever.
my wife would say the exact same thing. She actually tells me that one of the things that she appreciated about me when she'd been dating a while, and she's like, "You're the one guy that would like put me in my place when I needed it." And she's like, "I may not like it at the time, but
we love
you
that.
weren't afraid to do it." You know what I mean? She's like, "And you just make the decision and it's done, right?" And yeah, we
Yeah.
have a great working relationship back and
Awesome.
forth. But when it
Mhm.
comes down to like, oh, I don't know, or whatever, she's like, you make the decision, we'll just go with it. And yeah,
Yeah.
I appreciate
It
that for
works
sure.
that way. Yeah, I'm very blessed to, like all joking aside, I'm very blessed for Chris and the way he is. And it's a testament to the Midwest. No offense, no one in Toronto is going to hear this, but the guys in Toronto,
Oh, they're gonna hear.
aside from my family
Yeah, we're
And some
worldwide. What
friends.
the heck?
and some friends, it's just a different breed, I feel. And Chris was very refreshing. his conversation, his point of view. I mean, the guy still opens doors for me. So
Well, it's
As he
funny,
should.
you know, Ken, when I met my wife, so I live in Florida now, but I was from Massachusetts, so I have like that go sort of Northeast
Mhm.
vibe, and she said something similar where it's like, she said like you're driven, but you're also like a gentleman. But I wanted to go back. That was just me patting myself on the back. But but I want to go back to uh Clara, you had said, you know, I trust Chris, and Landon, you said that Tay trusts you, and Kennedy, my wife, trusts me. And that's frankly based on, and I'll give an example, it's based on evidence, right? That they can trust. Because, you know, Kennedy made a comment the other day about how there's been times where I'm like, oh, you know, this thing in business happened that like knocks you down a rung, and a week later something makes up for that. And she's like, see, like you always figure it out. So then I'm able to, and I say this kind of joking, kind of seriously, kind of take advantage of that and say, well, now I can take a risk on this bigger thing and this bigger thing. And it pays off over time. But it's like, okay, she saw me figure it out here. Let's do this. And when you have that backing and that support, like nothing's worse than, you know, busting your balls all day and then coming back to the house with someone who doesn't support you. You know, that just knocks you down. But when you have someone that does support you, it's like, all right, can take on the world. Let's
Oh
go.
yeah. And it goes both ways. Like I feel I do that for Chris, I hope. And he definitely does it for me. I started writing a screenplay after I lost my parents a couple of years ago about my parents' life because it is fascinating, and I really want to highlight the immigrant experience for Portuguese people, which it's never been done before. And he looked at me and he's like, if you want to take a couple of months, go to Portugal, go to Toronto, write this screenplay, finish it. He goes, I support you. And to me, it's like I get goosebumps, you know, when I say things like that, because it really, it could be just as easy to be like, for what? Like, why are you writing a screen? Are you kidding? But he knows that that's my creative side needing an outlet, you know, so for sure it goes both ways.
Same. I've told so many people as of late, you know, obviously Taylor just switched careers, and you know, she's now doing the esthetician beauty thing,
Oh
and
yeah.
she has, ever since I've known her, that is her passion in life. And so we've had conversations where her last job, obviously in the recruiting and travel nurse world, it was just that for her. It was a job. She was not passionate about it all. She was very successful at it. Very successful, you know, so her making this career change came with a major six-figure pay cut. But knowing that, you know, we had the conversation, I was like, go do what you love to do. And now watching her get up every day and love to go
That's
to work
awesome.
and making women feel beautiful. I mean, even when we're at home, she's laying in bed watching TikToks on makeup and dermaplaning and all, you know, that's like her life revolves around it. So
I
now
need
she's
to come
living that,
see
acting
her
it
I'm not
out.
actually.
Oh,
Chinese. I
she
have
would
no
love it.
idea
She
what
would
you
love
just
it.
said.
I had no idea up until a couple
impressed
months
that you
ago,
know
Chris,
this.
but hey, yeah, let me tell you, when it comes
Yeah, get off
to
TikTok,
Hey,
Landon.
this
Come on.
takes
brows,
work.
yeah, if you want your
It takes
lashes
work.
or your brows laminated, I've got it all now. Yeah, for
Laminated,
sure.
is that a thing?
Is
that a
a
thing now?
thing.
It is.
And a pretty ass like you, Double D, I can't believe you haven't had them laminated yet.
Laminated, like a piece of paper laminated?
No, it's
It's
a whole thing. You guys don't
yeah.
need to know about it.
All I know is Landon just called me pretty, and I'll take it. Anyways,
Yep.
oh man. Well, this has been a blast to say the least. And we've had a number of different types of people on the show, but we haven't yet had a couple on the show that both have their own initiatives and things that they're working on while also working on something together, while also being together. So we appreciate the two of you joining us and sharing that. Clara, I'll start with you. If someone wants to follow along with your journey or support Soaring Wings where you're at right now, where do you want to send folks to?
The website is soaringwings.com. You can find us on socials just by typing that into your search bar. It's a great little spot. It's 20 minutes away from anywhere you are in Omaha almost. And just keep an eye out for some revisions I will be making there for sure. So
Awesome. And I know
Yeah.
I already planted the seed, but when I'm back in Omaha and we do our next meetup, thinking about getting a land jet over to Soaring Wings, and perhaps we can do an event there.
I got you. Yeah. We'll definitely do that for you. No problem.
Awesome. And Chris, same line of questioning. If someone needs commercial insurance, if they want to learn more about Pharaoh, if they want to follow along with your journey, where can they go?
Yeah, they can get me at chris@projectpharaoh.com is my email address. They can check out our website at projectpharaoh.com. And on the Unico side, they can certainly go to unicogroup.com and/or get me at Senkbile@unicogroup.com.
And you've got a podcast.
Oh, we are not, I don't think yet jumping into the podcast game.
You're just on a bunch of podcasts then.
He's been on.
Clara, my
Okay.
girl, and speaking of the wind behind your sails, she gets us onto a podcast or two, but we haven't started our own. We've talked about it. And
Okay, I was
actually,
gonna say I've seen. I'm like, all right. I thought it was your pod, so my apologies.
No,
But
I
yeah,
like to
it
pimp
helps.
my husband out. 'Cause honestly, I like seeing him on screen. It's mostly for my pleasure. So I get him.
You're making them blush.
Yeah.
And I apologize for the barking in the background sometimes. That's our little, this is Chris's real love right here, Nova. So I apologize if she's making some noise in the background.
No,
She
you're
was
good. I'm
good.
surprised. I was ready to hit the mute button just now. Our pool person came over to do their weekly round, and usually my dog will flip out, and he hasn't yet. So that's he's not
Yep.
being a good guard dog, but I feel you on that. Awesome. Well,
Very
this was a
well.
pleasure. Appreciate
Likewise.
both of your times, and when I'm not in Florida and come visit in
Yeah.
Nebraska, we'll be sure to hit you guys up. So with that, take care. Hope you enjoy your day. And for everyone listening in, definitely share this episode. Thanks for your time. Take care.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much.
Thanks.
Who knew I would make it this far? They hated, they never believed me. Yeah, I would never drop the ball. I know I make it look easy. Yeah, Mayweather with the defense. I don't care what a critic got to say. I got them picking up the pieces. Hook it up.